Good morning, everyone. I'm David Barish, Chairman of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. If you haven't already, please put your cell phones, electronic devices on silent. With us today are Fred Strathmeyer, representing Russ Redding, Secretary of Agriculture, Jennifer Langen, representing Joe Torcella, State Treasurer, and Sue Layton, representing Revenue Secretary Dan Hassel. Thank you all for being here and for your participation. Quorum being present, I will call proceedings to order. First order of business, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
By way of announcements, the board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, October 2nd, to discuss personnel matters and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters being considered by the board today. I'd also announce that the board will hold a public input hearing on Thursday, November 1st at 10 a.m. in Springettsbury Township Municipal Administration Building at 1501 Mount Zion Road, York, Pennsylvania. At that time, the board will collect testimony on a Category 4 casino application that has been submitted by Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC. The names of all citizens, public officials, and community groups who wish to provide oral or written testimony regarding the proposed casino are now being accepted. Anybody wishing to provide testimony at the public input hearing must register prior to the hearing by visiting the board's website at www.gamingcontrolboard.pa.gov and click on Pennsylvania National Casino York Public Input Hearing. The link under Quick Links section of the homepage. The deadline for registration to speak is noon, October 30th, 2018. The list of those registered to speak will be posted on the board's website 1 week prior to the hearing and updated daily thereafter. Those who wish to place written comments on the record can do so prior to the hearing date through the same website by email to boardclerk@pa.gov or by fax 717-265-7416. Mailed comments must be postmarked no later than October 30th and mailed to Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board, Post Office Box 69060, Harrisburg, PA 17106, to the attention of the board clerk. Public hearing, first order of business today, Sands Bethworks petition for an interacting gaming certificate. I got frogs in my throat.
I do not have a card on me.
Before we begin, I would ask that everyone who's going to speak today please state and spell your name for the court reporter prior to speaking. Additionally, I would ask that all non-attorney witnesses who might be testifying today to please stand at this time and be sworn in.
I do.
Petitioners can begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Michael A. Magazoo, M-A-G-A-Z-Z-U, Vice President and General Counsel, Sands Bethworks Gaming, LLC. Mr. Chairman, you have, I believe, been presented with the Sands Bethworks Gaming petition for authorization to conduct interactive gaming. That petition was answered by the Office of Enforcement Counsel, and in that answer, we recognize that there is a lengthy a list of 22 conditions which must be met before the applicant can get into the lab and perform any sort of testing, and certainly before any full authorization to conduct online gaming. We, from Sands Bethworks Gaming, want to emphasize what is stated in it's a footnote in the petition, which appears multiple times, And that, in essence, states that we are only applying for the interactive gaming certificates because of the pending sale of the Sands Bethworks gaming assets to PCI Gaming. If not for that pending acquisition, Sands Bethworks Gaming would not be applying for these interactive gaming certificates, and I believe it has been publicly stated widely that the Sands Bethworks Gaming Company and its affiliates, including its parent companies in Las Vegas, have no interest in online gaming, and that remains the same today. Again, we're applying for this because of the pending sale, and so we're in a bit of a unique situation here. We don't have a presentation for you today. We do have a representative from PCI Gaming, Ms. Kaufman, who I'm sure will introduce herself in a moment. If there are any questions about the conditions that appear in the Office of Enforcement Counsel's answer to the petition, we would be happy to try to address those, but we are in a position right now because of this pending transaction where Sands Bethworks Gaming cannot submit to you how it would operate online gaming under its current ownership because it has no desire to do so. And PCI Gaming is in a position where it is, I'll defer to Ms. Kaufman, but I believe a bit premature for them to submit to you exactly how any online gaming platform would operate. With that, we do ask that the board approve the petition in its current form, recognizing, of course, the 22 conditions that must be met before full authorization.
Fine. We up here fully understand the complexity of what's going on right now. We appreciate your presence. You can proceed. If you'd introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. Lynn, L-Y-N-N-E, Kaufman, K-A-U-F-M-A-N, from the law firm of Cooper Levinson, L-E-V as in Victor, E-N-S-O-N. On behalf of the Porch Creek Indian Gaming Authority in our capacity as an applicant
Why?
and a future owner of Sands Bethworks. And as I will reiterate what Mr. Magazoo said, which is that we understand the Sands Bethworks submitted this petition in the interest of the PCI Gaming Authority, so that when we do acquire the Sands Bethworks, we will be able to offer interactive gaming. And Chair and board members, I realize that this is actually the first time that the Porch Creek Indian Gaming Authority has appeared before you. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to briefly introduce the tribe to you. The Porch Creek Indian Gaming Authority is an instrumentality of the Porch Band of Creek Indians. And the Porch Band of Creek Indians are the only federally recognized Indian tribe in Alabama, and they also are one of the few Indian tribes that have always occupied their lands. The Porch Creek Indian Gaming Authority was created as an instrumentality of the tribe to conduct their gaming operations. And the Porch Creek PCI Gaming Authority currently has operations both on tribal lands and off of tribal lands. They have 3 first-class casino resort hotels in Alabama. They also have majority interest in racetracks in Florida and Alabama. And about a year ago, they purchased the properties in Aruba and Curacao that are operated under the Renaissance brand, and they're very lovely properties. As for the petition, as Mr. Magazoo mentioned, it was filed on July 13th, and it requested Sands Bethworks to offer all 3 types of interactive gaming: casino-type games, slot machine-type games, and peer-to-peer games. Mr. Magazoo mentioned the OEC response, and we also have no objections to any of the conditions. As set forth in the petition and as mentioned, and as you have mentioned, you're obviously very aware of, Porch Creek does not only they're not the current owner, but we are in the process of concentrating on closing the land-based transaction and doing everything we can to push that process forward. As part of that, we're learning about the technology and trying to, make decisions as to what systems to utilize. For that reason, and the fact also that it is not imminent, the closing is not imminent, there's still, obviously, since this is the first time I've appeared before you, a few regulatory items to be handled. We have not yet selected an interactive gaming operator. When an interactive gaming operator is selected, they'll obviously meet all of the conditions and the law and the regulations. We'll say that Porch Creek does have a social gaming website that they integrate into their land-based casino and through loyalty programs and the like, and they are looking forward to being able to translate that into real money gaming and drive more traffic to the Sands Bethlehem. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from Enforcement Council?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, a few questions. I just want to make sure that it's on the record and that we understand that the $10 million authorization fee, the fee that's going to be owed, that fee will come due, if the board approves this petition, will come due within the next 60 days of the board's order.
That is correct. Sands Bethworks Gaming is ready, willing, and able to issue that payment within the 60-day time frame.
Okay. And what happens if the Porch Creek change of control is not approved by the board?
Sands Bethworks Gaming has indicated that it understands, well, whether it's necessary or not, Sands has indicated in the petition that it would forfeit any license that is authorized to Sands Bethworks Gaming, including the $10 million fee.
Okay, so you understand that fee is non-refundable?
Yes, we understand that.
Okay, as long as that's clear, Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions.
I would just point out for the public that the reason why we're here is because the statute did require the filing within 90 days, and if we hadn't held this hearing and done all this, we would be, it may be premature, but we have no choice under the statute but to take the testimony we're taking today. I just want that to be clear to everybody here. Okay. Questions or comments from the board?
With that, Mr. Chairman, we just have our statement for the record.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's Michael Rowland, ROLAND, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The Office of Enforcement Counsel, along with the Bureau of Gaming Operations, Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement, Bureau of Gaming Laboratory Operations, Bureau of Licensing, Office of Diversity, and the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling have reviewed and consulted extensively on the petition and appendices filed by Sands Bethworks Gaming, LLC to conduct interactive gaming and for the issuance of an interactive gaming certificate. After which, OEC filed an answer in this matter requesting that the board order implementation of certain listed conditions if it was so inclined to grant the relief requested in the petition. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the approval of Sands' petition to conduct interactive gaming and to the issuance of an interactive gaming certificate to Sands Bethworks Gaming, LLC, subject to the proposed conditions outlined in OEC's answer, which was filed on September the 6th, 2018, and any additional conditions imposed by the board. The Office of Enforcement Counsel is available to answer any questions if you have them in this matter.
Any questions or comments from petitioners in response to Office of Enforcement Counsel?
No, Mr.
No.
Chairman.
Additional comments or questions from the board? This matter will be voted on later today when we get to the Office of Chief Counsel section of the agenda. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Valley Forge Convention Center Partners. petition for an petition for an interactive gaming certificate. Again, I'd remind everyone, if you're going to speak, please spell and state your name for the court reporter prior to your presentation, and I would have all non-attorney witnesses be sworn at this time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry for that aside. Petitioners may begin your presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Adrian King from the Ballard Bar Firm. Here today on behalf of Valley Forge Convention Center Partners, now an LLC, which is here on our petition for an interactive gaming certificate in all three categories. With me today is Dave Zerfing. Dave was for many years the Vice President of Finance for the property, and he has now assumed the title with Eric Pearson's departure of Vice President and General Manager of the property within the Boyd organization. Also Bill Wright, who's a Senior VP for Regional Operations for Boyd, and Bill has oversight responsibility for the property within Boyd. I think, as you know, Boyd's tenure of ownership is in about, I believe it's third week since the close of the transaction, and so they are pleased to be here. We will keep this short and efficient. Tell you a little bit about how we're going to go forward here. First, we'll talk about the leadership team, organizational overview, the key partners that we'll be working with in marketing and technology, how we are going to use the interactive gaming certificate with respect to cross-marketing and convergence with the bricks and mortar premises, and then getting into some of the details on account creation, consumer protection, compliance to Gaming Control Board standards. So just briefly, with respect to the team that will be overseeing this initiative for Valley Forge, as I've mentioned, we have Dave here day-to-day at the property, Bill, Blake Rampmeyer, who is the Chief Information Officer for Boyd. Blake was actually I think it was the week that the transaction closed, along with the General Counsel for Boyd, and did meet with Mr. O'Toole and his team, introducing themselves and actually specifically talking about interactive gaming. So he's already been in to meet with your team. And then, as you'll see, there's going to be a partnership with the FanDuel group. And there we have Tim Morrow, who's the Chief Technology Officer. And FanDuel actually also attended the meeting that I referenced with Christian Janensky, their Chief Legal Officer. In terms of key partners, and I know that you've already heard of some of these folks through the other presentations that you have had the pleasure of hearing so far. From other operators on platform, it'll be IGT. With account, it'll be GAN, Game Account Network, geofencing with GeoComply, and then with Know Your Customer and Client Identity, there's a company called Aristotle. Quickly, on behalf of FanDuel Group, just give you a little bit of an introduction. They are the #1 U.S. online operator. They already, I believe, are licensed here in Pennsylvania with respect to fantasy. They have an application in with respect to this project. On horse racing, their brands are TVG and Betfair Exchange, and on online casino, Betfair. They're in 45 states. They have 8 million customers and $265 million in revenue. FanDuel is the U.S. subsidiary of two companies that merged together, Paddy Power from Ireland and Betfair, which I believe is out of the UK. As you can see, they have a worldwide footprint with a customer operations center in Portland, Oregon. They're already up and running in New Jersey with Golden Nugget. They have a FanDuel headquarters operation in New York. On the horse racing side, TVG is in Los Angeles. They have headquarter functions in Dublin, Ireland, in London. There's an IT group in Scotland, and they are in many other countries in Europe and also in Australia. 7,000 employees total, 1,300 product developers, 350 personnel on risk and trading, and nearly 200 people with respect to marketing. Drilling down a little bit with respect to interactive gaming, with respect to FanDuel as the Valley Forge Boyd partner. They've already been working via Betfair alongside Golden Nugget in New Jersey. Also working with the New Jersey Sports and Exposition Authority with respect to Monmouth Park, Meadowlands Racetrack. They are working on a similar relationship with the Greenbrier in West Virginia. When I say similar, meaning the relationship that they are proposing to establish with Valley Forge. And Pennsylvania is the next market that they would like to enter into with Valley Forge and Boyd. I mentioned they're licensed in multiple U.S. jurisdictions for racing, gaming, and daily fantasy sports. Betfair Interactive holds a casino service industry license from the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement, and they have, or they will be filing an enterprise entity application and a disclosure form here with the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. They'll be bringing a database with them, television and digital marketing experience, and their global capabilities to help make this initiative a success. With respect to branding, first off, this petition is for all three categories of certificates. So we have slots, online table games with live dealers, peer-to-peer with poker. There'll be race and sports initiatives to come through separate applications and a petition with respect to a sports betting certificate. With respect to cross-marketing, the current URL that we use is vfcasino.com, but they'll be adding subdomain interactive, and everything will be tied as required under the statute and the regs to the Valley Forge brand. Further on the convergence of the online presence with on-premises, we want to mirror to some degree the customer experience from the land-based to online, and want to drive traffic back to the brick-and-mortar casino using the customer loyalty data program and the various loyalty program components with respect to gaming offers, entertainment offers, dining, hotel, and other promotional items. This slide and the next are just mock-ups that we're just showing that are used currently by Betfair in New Jersey. On online account registration, a typical registration setup that you would see online, various security features with passwords, security questions, things that you would expect to run a secure website. Second, with respect to responsible gaming and self-limits, I just want to point out all of the standard features that you would expect, and in particular with respect to deposit limits, wager limits, time limits, and things of that nature, which I know are important to the board. Finally, with respect to compliance to Game Control Board standards, we'll be using the experience with FanDuel, and also I should mention that Boyd, with respect to its history, has been in the interactive space before, specifically in New Jersey when it was a part owner of the Borgata. And so they bring that experience. But converging all of that experience together to engage in best practices and obviously be in compliance with any of the PGCB standards or requirements. One last point, through the platform operator, we will of course comply and make available to the board 24/7 oversight access to whatever's going on within the interactive space. And then finally, we'll be ensuring that everything that we do online complies with all federal, state standards with respect to customer privacy, personal identifying information, and the like. So with that, I will open it up, invite any questions you may have for Bill, Dave.
Enforcement Council.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. John Crowe, CROHE, Assistant Enforcement Counsel for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The Office of Enforcement Counsel, along with the Bureau of Gaming Operations, Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement, Bureau of Gaming Laboratory Operations, Bureau of Licensing, Office of Diversity, and the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling have reviewed and consulted extensively on the petitions and appendices filed by Valley Forge Convention Center Partners, LLC, to conduct interactive gaming and for the issuance of an interactive gaming certificate.
Excuse me. I should have said, did you have any questions for them before you proceed?
We have no questions at this
Now
time.
proceed.
Want to start over, Mr. Chairman? I think we should make him start over.
I think so too.
No.
Would you like me to start at the beginning?
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
We're kidding, yes.
For the issuance of an interactive gaming certificate, after which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer in this matter requesting that the board order the implementation of certain listed conditions if it was so inclined to grant the relief requested in the petition. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the approval of Valley Forge Convention Center Partners, LLC's petition to conduct interactive gaming and to the issuance of an interactive gaming certificate to Valley Forge Convention Center Partners, LLC, subject to the proposed conditions outlined in the Office of Enforcement Counsel's answer filed on August 29, 2018, and any conditions imposed by the board. The Office of Enforcement Counsel is available for any questions that you may have in this matter.
We kind of went out of order. I should have asked whether there were questions or comments from the board for petitioners or for OEC. Any questions up here? No. Okay. Does petitioners have any questions for OEC?
No questions. We obviously understand that this is if approved by the board, this will be a conditional approval. We look forward to working with OEC and the rest of the Gaming Control Board staff to satisfy the conditions. There are 22 set forth in the proposed order, and we look forward to getting to work.
Thank you very much. This matter will also be on the agenda for later today.
And if I could just move to incorporate our presentation into the record and
With no objection, consider it moved.
simply seek your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This should be the last one. No. Sure. I'm not sure. Now we'll hear from Mountain View Thoroughbred petition for a sports wagering certificate. I would note this is the first request for a sports wagering certificate that the board is considering today. Again, I would ask that anybody who's going to speak today to state and spell your name for the court reporter, and that all non-attorney witnesses would stand at this time to be sworn. Thank you.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Petitioners may begin. Why, there you are again.
Yes, it's been
Having a deja vu moment
it's
here.
been the subject of much amusement this morning. Adrian King, again from the Ballards Bar Firm, and I, by the way, have given the court reporter one of my cards so she can spell everything. And here today on behalf of Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, here we are appearing before you, as you said, for the first petition that you will hear on a sports wagering certificate. And joining me today is John Finnemore, who I know you know from yesterday. John's Senior VP for Regional Operations for Penn National with responsibility for Mountain View. Dan Eim, who is the Vice President and General Manager of Mountain View, and also Alex Vizda, who is the Director of Compliance at the property. And with that, I'm going to turn it right over to John, and we'll jump right into this presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Excuse me.
I will. My name is John Finnemore, Finamore, Senior Vice President, Regional Operations for Penn National, and it's indeed a deja vu moment for me as well this morning. Happy to talk about sports betting today, and I thought we'd start out with talking about the leadership team that we have identified for this exciting initiative. Joe Kerwin, very briefly, will be our sports betting manager. Joe has many years operating off-track facilities for Penn, general manager of an off-track facility for us currently. Gary Pecorello has been with the company for 21 years. Gary has very diverse experience in racing and casino marketing. He currently is our Director of Casino Marketing at the property, and again, 21 years of experience both on the racing and the gaming side. And then this last gentleman, I think, needs no introduction. Fred is our current VP of Marketing. He's been with the property or with the company for 44 years, I believe, and very strong on the racing side, as well as I said, he's currently our VP of Marketing at the property. Our key partner for this initiative will be the William Hill Group. William Hill is a large international company headquartered in a company with presence in the U.S. as well as in the U.K. 16,000 employees, as you can see on the slide. I think most significantly, we currently have partnered with William Hill and are up and running with them in the state of Mississippi, where we have 5 operations, as well as West Virginia at Charlestown. We've been open for over a month and working with William Hill at those locations. So we have partnered with them for Pennsylvania as well. We think there's good continuity given our existing relationship with them. And as you can see on the slide, they also have a presence in Nevada with 107 operations. They are also currently in Delaware and New Jersey. Mobile sports betting, definitely something we intend to offer as soon as we can. Obviously, working with staff through all these initiatives. But sports betting, mobile sports betting, is a feature that we think is very important and one that we will want to offer as soon as possible. The plan is anyway to launch with in-person bricks and mortar only, and then add the mobile app, mobile technology at a later date. Self-service kiosks will also be available at a later date on the gaming floor. We think that's an important amenity as well. And as far as when we launch, again, we're working with staff. We realize there's testing that needs to go on, as well as William Hill's licensing that needs to be completed. So we're excited to get ready to offer this new amenity to our customers. There's certainly a lot of awareness at the property, a lot of questions about it from our guests. They see that it's up and running down the road in West Virginia, and it's a product that they are very, very interested in, which is exciting for us. Let me turn the presentation over to Dan Eim.
Dan Eim, IHM, Vice President, General Manager of Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. Good morning, Chairman, Board, and staff. So this morning I'd like to talk a little bit about the operations or the actual sports book itself. So we've identified the location as the Simulcast Theater, which is located on the second level of our casino floor as you come up the escalator. So we believe, Penn National believes that this is a great location, as well as the PA State Horse Racing Association, just because of the synergies. So we'd like to capitalize on those synergies and utilize that current space. The space consists of approximately 5,000 square feet. We will offer 6 windows with sports betting. We will also have, as John indicated, the kiosks, which would be at a later date. Those would actually be located on the gaming floor. We will have 6 kiosks, however, in the simulcast area, which is just for simulcast racing only. We will have 2 sets of odds boards, and just to give you an idea of those odds boards, we will have one behind the tellers and one in the viewing area. Those odds boards represent 24 40-inch TVs, so they're pretty large in scale. We will also have a 110-inch HD video wall. We will have 55-inch televisions throughout the sports wagering area. There's 36 of those in total. We will have wagers of all professional sports as well as collegiate. And then obviously to televise those, we also have Sunday NFL Ticket, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, and NBA League Pass, as well as other collegiate and international sports packages. And pending regulatory approval, we plan or anticipate of opening the sports book in the next few months. On the next slide is just to highlight some of the dining amenities that we have that are close proximity. So adjacent to the sports book would be the Skybox, which is currently in that location. We also have 50 HD televisions located in that area. We'll be offering the same types of sports programming offered in the sports bar. And obviously there's opportunities for food and drink. And then the main event, which is currently in the simulcast area. We're retrofitting that location, that space, just to be able to offer more variety of drinks and food for our guests that are enjoying watching sports or placing wagers on simulcast. So I will turn it over to Alex.
Thank you. Alex Vizda, H-V-I-Z-D-A. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, and staff. We wanted to take a moment and speak about responsible gaming because this is an entirely new form of gaming for the Commonwealth. And we share in the board's concern about protecting our consumers, just as we have for over 10 years in the land-based gaming space. With regard to responsible gaming, everybody who works in the sports department will follow the same training regimen that all of our other employees do. That includes full responsible gaming training upon hire, daily pre-shifts regarding responsible gaming issues, quarterly roundtables where I select a random sample of employees and sort of give them a pop quiz on our responsible gaming duties, and annual refresher training, which is provided by the Council on Compulsive Gambling of Pennsylvania. I know a major concern is age verification. So in the sports book itself on the second floor, you will not be able to complete a sports betting transaction without having a human interaction. So just like getting onto our gaming floor, if you appear to be under the age of 30, you will be carded. We'll use the Veridox system to card the IDs, and we will check your age that way before you are allowed to complete a sports betting transaction. There also will not be any sports betting self-serve kiosks in the simulcast theater itself. Those kiosks are going to be limited to the gaming floor. So the controls that you would have to get on the gaming floor would apply to the self-serve kiosks on the floor. And then regarding the mobile sports wagering, it works exactly the same as the iGaming presentation we did for you last month. You'd have to create an account to become a registered player, and there's a background check service which uses LexisNexis to verify the user's background, and then there's also geolocation services to identify where the person is located. And of course, with regard to the mobile, the board will have 24/7 oversight. You'll be able to see everything that we can see as it's happening for your purposes. Also, with regard to self-exclusions, Penn National Gaming currently maintains a program which many other gaming operators do throughout the country, in which if you sign up for a state self-exclusion in any state, you are blown out of all of our properties in every state, because if someone tells Ohio that they have a gambling problem, they don't magically cross the border into Pennsylvania and not have that problem. So along that same thinking, we are our Penn policy is going to be that if you are signed up for any type of state self-exclusion program, whether it's a land-based or an interactive gaming or a VGT self-exclusion, you will not be able to knowingly gamble at any Penn National gaming property nationwide. With that, I'd just like to again echo what I said yesterday. This is a brand new form of gaming. It's new for us, it's new for the board, and the staff has been tremendous in working with us to get this up as quickly and responsibly as we can, so that we make a good first impression with the consumer in Pennsylvania. And with that, I guess we'll take questions.
Questions or comments from Enforcement Council?
Only a couple. And I'm not going to say so specifically because I know it's confidential, but with regard to the sports wagering area, you understand that's part of the gaming floor.
That's correct.
Okay. And our regulations call for at least 1,000 square feet. Okay. And I noticed that the plans that were submitted had something less than 1,000 square feet. Is that something that do you have room to expand? Do you plan on requesting a petition for a waiver of that? What are your plans moving forward in that regard?
Well, a couple things. John, would you like to go?
Why don't you start?
Okay. I do think that we would likely be filing a petition for a waiver.
Okay.
I think that one of the things, I'll let John get into some more of the details, that we're trying to do in a appropriate fashion is integrate sports wagering into an existing simulcast facility. And we're also trying to achieve a goal of the State Horse Racing Commission with respect to allowing the two offerings to be, as was described in a recent correspondence to us by Secretary Redding, a symbiotic benefit between the two forms. And so we're trying to also respect the fact that we will have simulcasting and horse racing wagering going on in the same facility, and that's why we're trying to really craft this in a way that balances those two items. I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, if I could, a lot of the Las Vegas books have racing and sports either in a shared facility or side by side, and I think there's a lesson to be learned from that setup. Certainly something we've looked at. Those customers will go back and forth, and racing customers, we know, will bet on sports and vice versa. So we looked at this as a tremendous opportunity to maximize that business opportunity, to give each of those customers something that we believe they want to do. We also know that that is something that the Racing Commission is supportive of, and in fact encouraged us to go that way, as mentioned. So we just think it makes a lot of sense. It is a little less than 1,000 square feet, that's correct, but we do believe it addresses the intent of the board, that we make this facility a quality product with the correct amenities. We're investing a lot on televisions, large screens, 2 sets of odds boards. We think this facility will be a little smaller than the requirement, but will be of a very high quality level of finish and product.
And I have no problem with the layout. I think it's great that you're including racing. I just want to encourage you to file that petition.
We will.
as soon as possible because I know that you have an aggressive timeline, and we would like to ensure that everything is meets the requirements and that there are no unnecessary delays in that regard.
We will do that. I'd add one other thing. The current facility is about 5,000 square feet. It's rarely at capacity, probably just the 3 major races per year that it gets to capacity or close to it. As you know, we have another simulcast area on the 3rd floor of the facility. So we look at that as there's opportunity there, there's space there. But we understand we need to file that petition. We'll do that. We'll do that right away.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions.
Questions or comments from the board?
Thank you. Good morning. There was a slide, Mr. Ime, when you were speaking right before you talked about the food venues, that I just didn't understand some of the terms that you were using. It was like NHL center, rink, and NFL something. Like you mentioned the major sporting leagues and talked about, yeah, right here. NFL Ticket Sunday, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, NBA League Pass, and other sports packages. I just guess I don't understand what you mean, what that means. Are those preferred seating arrangements in an arena? Is that some combination betting? Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's purely just you can purchase these packages through DirecTV, so you can so it allows you to have all of the games. So these are games outside of just what are on your general, sports packages or whatever that you get from Comcast or any other.
Oh. So you're saying these are items that you will be prepared to have betting happen on?
Yeah. So for example, I would like to give a little shout out to the Chicago Bears. But so if you're a Chicago Bear fan like myself, it's very hard pressed to watch a game anywhere in Central PA. But having the Sunday ticket would allow me to be able to watch the Chicago Bears.
So that's something that you would have at your site that would drive people to your site because they know that that is there and they would be able to see the Chicago Bears on one of those 36 televisions.
That's
that
correct.
Day. Okay, I understand now.
Questions? I have one. Just talk me through the question of air quality and smoking. How is that going to apply to this area?
So, currently in our current simulcast theater area, even though it is non-gaming square footage today, we have half of that location of that room, that 5,000 square feet, half of it is designated for smoking and the other half is for non-smoking.
Right.
So our plan is to keep it that same way.
Okay, thank you. Presentation from Enforcement Council.
Good morning, Thomas Monahan, Monaghan, with the Office of Enforcement Council. The Office of Enforcement Council, along with the Bureau of Casino Compliance, Bureau of Gaming Operations, Bureau of Investigations Enforcement, Bureau of Gaming Laboratory Operations, Bureau of Licensing, Office of Diversity, and the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling comprehensively reviewed and consulted extensively regarding Mountain View's filed petition to conduct sports wagering and for the issuance of a sports wagering certificate, after which OEC filed an answer in this matter requesting that the board order the implementation of certain listed conditions if it was so inclined to grant the relief requested in the petition. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Council has no objection to the approval of Mountain View's petition to conduct sports wagering and to the issuance of a sports wagering certificate to Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, subject to the proposed conditions outlined in OEC's answer, which was filed on September 7, 2018, and any other conditions the board may impose. The Office of Enforcement Council is available for any questions you may have in this matter.
Does petitioner have any questions or comments for OEC at this point?
No questions. Just would further emphasize we've been working already in cooperation with OEC and board staff. Thank them for all of their efforts. If approved today, this petition will have, I believe, 21 conditions. We will diligently work through those, achieve them all, so that we get a green light, and we look forward to working with OEC and the team to achieve that.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from the board? Thank you also, and we will.
May I also very quickly move our presentation into the record?
No objection.
And we thank you for your
So
consideration.
moved, and we'll be taking this up in the Chief Counsel section of the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Greenwood Gaming's request for approval, authority to conduct sports wagering in its primary location as well as at its South Philadelphia Turf Club. These are two separate petitions before the board, but we will consolidate the matters for purposes of taking evidence.
Excuse me.
Again, I would remind anyone who's going to be speaking today to please state and spell your name for the court reporter prior to presentation. And at this time, I would ask all non-attorney witnesses to please stand and be sworn. Thank you. Mark, you can begin.
Thank you. May it please the board. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. We are pleased to be before you this morning. My name is Mark Stewart. That's S-T-E-W-A-R-T, with the law firm of Eckert Siemens. And with me is John Dixon, Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment's Chief Technology Officer, Matthew Cullen, the Senior Vice President of iGaming and Sports, Joe Wilson, sitting directly behind me, the Chief Operating Officer of Parks Racing. And also present today are Tom Bonner, the Group Vice President for Legal and Chief Counsel, and Brian Schroeder, Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment's Vice President of Regulatory Affairs and Chief Compliance Officer. As the Chairman noted, we are here on two petitions before you today. The first requests approval of a sports wagering certificate. The second is to seek authorization to conduct sports wagering at the South Philadelphia Turf Club. In terms of our agenda, how will you get the presentation on the TVs? Is that something that I do, or?
I'll let you know.
There you go.
Great.
There we
Thank
go.
you. In terms of our agenda for today, we'd like to touch on our experience and expertise. We have a few topics to cover, various aspects of our planned operations. And finally, we'd like to go over the benefits of our sports wagering program to the Commonwealth and to the public. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Cullen to address our initial topics.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Cullen, Senior Vice President for Interactive Gaming and Sports. Last name Cullen, C-U-L-L-E-N. I'd like to start this morning talking a little bit about our experience, as Mark alluded to. Greenwood Racing Incorporated, which is the parent company of Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment, was established by about 5 executives that came over from the United Kingdom in the early 90s. They worked for Mecca Bookmakers, which at the time was one of the leading bookmakers in the UK. Our current sports wagering and iGaming management team, which reports to me and up through John to the board, we're starting to fill that out at the moment, and we're looking for and have brought on several industry veterans, which I'll speak to in just a moment. Parks, since its inception, has operated leading parimutuel businesses across the state of Pennsylvania since 1990. We have a wealth of experience in a combination of retail, telephone, and online wagering, and have been doing that activity since 1999. Parks Racing, obviously, formerly Philadelphia Park. We have OTC tellers and self-service kiosks, which are up and running at that facility. We have our turf clubs around the Philadelphia market, where we also have tellers and self-service kiosks. And then we have our online and mobile wagering platform and phone platform called PhoneBet. We think this experience in racing will serve us well when it comes to sports betting within the Commonwealth. Our team, as I alluded to earlier, has a wealth of experience, and it really starts at the top. Robert Green, our chairman of our board of directors, is the former chairman of William Hill in the UK. John Dixon, seated to my right, who is our CTO, was a member of the founding team at Greenwood Racing and has over 28 years of experience and is a former William Hill technology executive. I mentioned myself as Senior Vice President of iGaming and Sports. I was a part of the founding team from Betfair, which is now Betfair Paddy Power, which originally came to the U.S. in 2009. I was also a member of the operational team at TVG, which is the second largest online horse racing betting platform. Also on my team currently is our Vice President of Interactive Marketing, Jeff Bow, who was a member of the founding team at FanDuel and led marketing for a small daily fantasy sports startup called Draft, which is now owned by Paddy Power Betfair. I'd like to talk next a little bit about our plans, which will encompass 2 venues to start and then ultimately move to online and mobile account-based wagering. The first is at Parks, where we are currently building out a temporary sports book in our 360 lounge on the casino floor. We have a permanent sports book. That construction is actually underway as we speak, with a estimated completion date of the second quarter of next year, 2019. Our non-primary locations will be our turf clubs in and around Philadelphia, starting with South Philadelphia, the South Philadelphia Turf Club. And then secondly, pending board approval, the Valley Forge Turf Club. And then thirdly, graduating hopefully to online and mobile account-based wagering sometime next year. Diving a little bit deeper into our actual launch, we view this happening in 2 phases, if allowed. Phase 1 would be our retail launch to start. We are working very hard towards a potential November 2018 opening at the casino and at the Turf Club. We would like to offer retail and mobile application-based sports wagering at both of those locations, which we will go into a little bit deeper detail in just a moment. Phase 2 would then encompass online and mobile, and we're working extremely hard to meet a potential launch for that in January or February, pending board approval. And that, of course, would be both online and mobile account-based sports betting wagering. So phase 1 around our retail launch, as I mentioned, November 2018 at the casino and Philadelphia, the South Philadelphia Turf Club. We aim to offer retail and mobile account-based sports wagering along with tellers, self-service kiosks, and mobile devices. The mobile application that we would be like to offer within the casino would be an intranet-based only application. Would be confined to the casino floor, to the building itself, on a closed Wi-Fi system, so that it would not be able to be used outside of the casino itself. As far as being able to offer this product, we feel it's very important, if we're going to offer in-play wagering, that our patrons are able to wager on their mobile devices that they bring with them, or mobile devices that we can offer them in the casino, because of the amount of volume that we expect from the activity. I don't know if you want to add to any of that, John?
Only that, in play, if we look at what's happened in New Jersey in the short space of time that sports betting's been operational in New Jersey, a large percentage of the business is coming from in-play betting, and you can't do in-play betting with tellers or kiosks. It's just not fast enough. So we want to be able to offer that to our customers, and we think it's very important in order to have a profitable business that will generate money both for us and for the state, that we can offer a full range of products. So that's why we are really looking to get approval for that as well.
What's your last name?
Sorry, Dixon, D-I-X-O-N. Dixon.
Next slide. So the next slide speak a little bit about the 360 Lounge and our build out there, which again is our temporary sportsbook location. It will incorporate, if you go to the next slide, we have some visuals. 7 teller positions with OTC or over-the-counter terminals, 12 self-service kiosks, which you can see at the top of that image. And then in addition, we're going to add another 30 kiosks, self-service kiosks, throughout the casino on the gaming floor itself, including Jack's Bar, our poker room, Liberty Gastropub, and our beer garden. There is a little bit of a typo in the presentation. We have 2 new, not 6x9 HD television screens that will be fitting into the sports book, but 16x9 high definition televisions and 20 75-inch HD TVs. The next following slides are some images of the temporary sportsbook location at 360 Lounge.
Probably worth mentioning that the square footage of the temporary sports bar is about 3,000 square feet.
So again, as part of Phase 1, in addition to 360, we're also looking to, pending board approval, launch sports betting at our South Philadelphia Turf Club location. Currently, the facility is going through about approximately $1 million worth of renovations. A lot of new technology is being rolled out, HD TVs throughout the facility, new surveillance system, carpet, and paint and furnishings. At that location, we will have 7 OTC terminals for 7 tellers. We'll also have 13 self-service wagering kiosks. And we will be increasing security personnel and security measures in coordination with the gaming board. We also are implementing a new admission policy. Currently today, it's 18 and over. We'll be upping that to 21 years and older for patrons to enter the facility. The next slide is an illustration of the layout of the new turf club.
Just to kind of give you some idea, the yellow areas are the areas that we're designating as sports betting areas. The total facility is over 35,000 square feet. The yellow areas add up to just over 8,000 square feet.
Interesting.
We're adding 150 new televisions. I think it'll be a great place to watch games. We'll also have all of the packages that were mentioned earlier, NFL Sunday Ticket, hockey, all those sort of things, so people can watch pretty much any game that's on in the country.
And John, the blue area is?
The blue area is racing.
Next, I'd like to speak about our platforms, our chosen platforms. I think it's important to note that the second platform, Kambi, we are in the final stages of finalizing our deal with them and trying to get our contract signed, so I wanted to point that out. Our core iGaming platform, which we will use for online casino gaming, is with GAN, as we mentioned to you last month, which includes a single player account management system and a singular wallet. It's also capable, the platform is capable of conducting Know Your Customer, or KYC, and geolocation of our players. Bolted on to the GAN platform will be Kambi if we end up signing with them, which we fully expect that we will. It'll be fully integrated into the GAN platform. We'll share that common account and wallet with GAN and provide integrity and risk management services. Our patron options for placing wagers throughout the experience that we expect to offer will be live tellers, as I mentioned, with the OTC terminals at both locations, our self-service kiosks, the mobile applications on tablets and mobile devices, as John and I mentioned, and then ultimately down the line with online gaming once iGaming is permitted. The next slide is an overview of the self-service betting terminals that we have ordered. They are the Novomatic FV830s. Novomatic, the parent company who are manufacturing these machines, is currently a PGCB licensed manufacturer. We've ordered over 60 of these units to use across the casino itself as well as the 2 turf clubs. As far as the content that we expect to offer for wagering in the state of Pennsylvania, It's a complete slate, if you will, of professional and collegiate sports markets, mainly focused on North American sports. You can see a full list of them there, from NFL to the NCAA, NBA, NCAA basketball, Major League Baseball, and NHL. It is worth noting that this is a temporary list, and this is not all inclusive of everything that we would eventually be offering. As far as the bet types that we expect to offer at launch would be singles, parlays, and round robins, but not just limited to those. And then the bet offers or markets would be a full range of markets across all the sports, but not limited to fixed odds, money lines, proposition bets, and most importantly, in-play betting, which we spoke to earlier. We expect through offering this activity to our patrons, there are a tremendous amount of benefits to the Commonwealth, including over 65 new direct jobs once we launch this business, millions of dollars that we would be paying annually in salaries and benefits for these new employees, and local economies supported by the renovation expenditures at these locations, and a significant amount of source of recurring tax revenue for the state. That's our presentation. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments from Enforcement Council?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to the application that you want to offer within parks, would you be would you be able to limit anyone accessing that app that's in a non-gaming area, or would it be throughout the whole parks facility that an individual could access the application?
It would be anywhere on the gaming floor.
Okay, so if someone's in a racing area, they would not be able to access the application.
For sports.
For sports.
For sports betting. We can certainly geo-fence that area off if that's a requirement.
Well, it's not a requirement. Well, why don't you walk me through how someone would gain access, I guess, to the application?
So first of all, they would have to have downloaded the app to their device. And then when they enter the building, if they open the app, it's going to look for the Wi-Fi network that's only available within the building. And if it finds that Wi-Fi network, it would connect, and then they would then be able to access sports betting.
So it's not necessary for someone to have an account with you in order to gain access to the app?
Initially, the idea is that they would fund the account on a daily basis, so they would have to go to a teller or a kiosk to deposit money to the account.
Okay.
And it would be a one-day account, much the same as we've done in racing for the last 20 years or so. It's the same concept. It's not account-based until we have online internet wagering, which then there would be the concept of you have a permanent account and you can use that account for casino gaming or sports betting. Once that is approved, and we're allowed to offer that.
From the standpoint of underage individuals accessing that app and being able to engage in sports wagering, you assume that there will be protocols in place to prevent that from happening?
Yeah, we can KYC the customer once they download the app and they register the app. Also, of course, because it's only available in the building, you've still, someone under 21 is going to be stopped at the door of the building, so they're not going to be able to get in the building in order to access the Wi-Fi network for the app.
Well, that's why I was asking about any of the racing areas or any of the non-gaming areas.
Well, our racing area at the casino is already 21 and over. Okay. We don't allow 18 to 21.
And with regard to your other building,
Turf Club.
No. With regard to the building where
racetrack building. We're not currently planning to offer sports betting in the racetrack building, only in the casino building.
All right, that's what I want to make sure. With regard to the Turf Club, you understand that we're going to require you, at least from my standpoint, to have Greenwood Parks up and running first and go through your test period to ensure everything is on the up and up before you can be authorized to go through a test period for the Turf Club.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that, but I am now. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have to be a certificate holder in order to be authorized to conduct racing, conduct sports wagering in the turf club.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I understand the point that Mr. Petrie is making, but I think it's more of a legal question or a legal position than one for.
Well, that's fair enough. As legal counsel, why don't you try to respond?
Certainly, we believe that the board could simultaneously approve the petition to authorize the sports wagering certificate, and then approve the petition authorizing us to conduct sports wagering at the South Philadelphia Turf Club today. How that actually rolls out certainly will be dictated by staff and them telling us that we've been tested and are ready to go. But I don't believe that there's a requirement that one start be tested, checked out, and then the next one be authorized.
So then, in short, you don't agree with Mr.
Correct.
Petrie's description of the law? Okay,
Yes.
fair enough.
Well, that's fair. We can agree to disagree.
For now.
Nevertheless, the board, if the board approves the petition, it will be authorizing you to move forward, and I hope with the conditions that we've put in place to ensure that parks can operate sports wagering with integrity, because there are new technologies that they want to implement, and I think it's important that we have an understanding and that the public is protected, and that to ensure that we have a comprehensive, smooth rollout at one facility before we allow them to roll it out to another facility. And I think that can be done simultaneously in due course to not slow down the rollout. But I think that can be those conditions can be put in place to allow those rollouts to occur within a short time frame of one another if everything goes smoothly at the first rollout.
But just, I don't want to jump ahead of the presentations here. Among your conditions that you're going to be requesting here, does that include that?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware of that?
Honestly, I was not.
Okay.
So perhaps that was my error.
That's okay. You'll have a few minutes to think about that because we'll take a break before we come back. I'm sorry. Please, who is? Did you have other
I have no further questions.
questions or comments from the board?
One, it's more just curiosity. If you look at the handle in industry standards, what percent is or are prop bets and in-play bets? Is there an industry standard, kind of how that breaks out?
Depends on the market. I think what we're seeing currently in a mature market like the UK, for as an example, it's about 80%.
Say again, sir?
80% of the wagering is in play versus proposition bets.
Interesting.
And some of the data points that we've received from New Jersey, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I think it's around 70-30 in play to, maybe I'm mixing up mobile.
For a couple of the operators who have mobile, it's 70-30. So in-play betting is clearly very popular in New Jersey, even though it's only a short period of time it's been available. So we believe it'll be the same.
And mobile wagering, I think the number that I was confusing myself with is about 80% in New Jersey at the moment for those that offer it, as opposed to on the computer.
Thank you. A couple of questions with regard to the off-track betting facility. And I've never been in an off-track betting facility, thus maybe my questions. I couldn't tell from the floor plan, which was very small. It looked like there were lots of little tables of 4. But I didn't know if you serve any food or drink in those facilities or if people just sit and watch and bet. My real question goes around the food and drink. Is there food and drink available at turf clubs?
Yes, there is. There's the top left-hand corner of the slide showed a restaurant area.
Oh, okay.
There's a fairly large bar in the center. And then we have a deli type operation there as well, where you can get a sandwich or a burger or something like that. So yes, we do.
Okay, and then with regard to the off-track betting facility, what is your understanding and your plan for that space in terms of compliance with the Pennsylvania's Clean Indoor Air Act?
The whole facility is already 100% non-smoking, and it will remain that way.
Thank you.
Clarify that. Which facility is 100%?
South Philadelphia Turf Club.
Oh, give me one more second, Jen. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on what Cyrus on the intranet, I want to be clear. So I can come into your facility with my phone, go to a kiosk or a teller, and set up an account with limitless dollars to bet that day. Is that what it is?
Not necessarily limitless.
Okay.
At a kiosk, we'd probably put a limit on how much money you could deposit to the kiosk and then transfer to your mobile device. But yeah, that's the idea. You deposit money in the kiosk or with a teller, and your device is then enabled to let you wager for that day.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, you can go back to the teller, and the teller can cash out if you have some winnings or if you have some money left, or as the case may be.
Suppose I forget to cash out. If I'm there on a Saturday watching college and I want to come back the next day, can I just come back the next day?
Yeah, you can't wager again the next day. What happens is any balance you've got left becomes what we call a voucher. So it's cashable. So you get your
So you
money,
cash out and then you're set up again for the next day.
Exactly.
And just, what's a round robin bet?
I'll take you on.
I don't bet on those.
Okay. I'm asking for a friend. I just was wondering.
Certainly for a friend.
Oh, yeah, okay. You don't know. All right. I know what a parlay and a straight wager is. I just didn't know what a round robin bet was. Okay. I'm done.
Talk to me a little bit about when you talk about this intranet and stuff like that. I know you said you comply with ISO standards. Talk to me a little bit about cybersecurity. I know you can't protect from everything. How often do you review those standards? Do you have a company that comes in and review them? Do you have your own security officer? This is obviously not that it can't be an issue for you now, probably in parks because people have their phones, but it will probably be more of an issue if people are using their phones to bet and things like that.
Sure. Yes, we do have a dedicated security officer. Yes, we use a couple of outside companies for regular intrusion testing and things of that nature. And we also subscribe to a company that actively monitors our firewalls and actually monitors all of the traffic coming in and out, and will immediately raise a red flag if they see something that is a potential issue. So we do take that very seriously.
So to follow up on Commissioner Santoni's question, are you going to stick a limit or not? You said probably.
On a kiosk, we plan to have a limit. It would probably be something like $500.
Yeah, but you're using probably, which doesn't make sense to me.
We haven't set our
We haven't
business
actually
rules yet.
set those business rules yet. We're still talking internally about it.
Okay.
There'll definitely be a limit.
You said definitely. I'm just trying to get the. He said probably. You said definitely.
Yes, we haven't decided the exact amount. There would be a limit because we don't want.
Give me a range.
Somewhere probably between 500 and 1,000 would be my current thinking.
You somewhere. So I'm just trying to get kind of a little bit more focused here.
I mean, those are matters that we've been discussing with staff. We've had, staff has been tremendous in terms of working with us on these petitions.
I mean, the difference between 500 and 1,000 seems big to me.
Mitt Romney, probably not, but the rest of us, yes.
He's also not in your casino.
That's right.
Mitt Romney's not voting on this today, so.
No, certainly those are issues that a lot of different elements come into play in terms of the know your customer and the other regulatory issues that we address. We've discussed them in a meeting with Kevin O'Toole and the rest of the staff. We'll continue to work with them on a daily basis to nail those down, and ultimately, of course, they'll have to approve all of our internal controls prior to launching, which would include and address this issue. So,
Are there any questions down here? I need to go way back. There was a part of the presentation talked about age limits. I guess we were talking about this turf club, I guess.
Yes.
No, actually, I don't think so, because we were talking about the horse racing. I'm a little bit confused. At the racetrack, how do we, I'm not even sure how to break this issue down. At your casino, nobody under the age of 21 can be in that building? You have restaurants, parents, I presume, can, under some limitations, can bring their teenage kids into the restaurant. If not, I need somebody to clarify this for me.
Chairman Brian Schroeder, SCHROEDER, Vice President of Regulatory Affairs. For our casino building, it's a standalone building with 3 separate entrances, all 24/7 monitored by security officers. No one under the age of 21 is allowed in there, even to use the restaurants or anything like that. There's none of that. So any sports wagering facility, or currently today our simulcast book that is set up in the casino building, everything is automatically already over 21.
Okay, that's useful. What was confusing me is often the building is not the same thing as the gaming floor.
When we had our casino in the grandstand building, we had the exact same problem you're discussing, but with a separate standalone building now, we're able to do that. With a separate standalone building now, we were able to say 21 and over only for the entire casino operation, or the grandstand.
Even
is
for
separate
some portion, I deal with 12 casinos. Some of them, the building and the casino floor, the gaming floor are one and the same. Sometimes they're not. But you're saying at your facility, one way or the other, no one's in the building who's less than 21.
Yes, and to follow through with that, Chairman, the South Philadelphia Turf Club, as a racing facility currently, has a age restriction of 18.
Yeah, that's where I was heading.
And rather than try and divvy up inside the building, this is for 21-year-olds, this is for 18-year-olds, we've taken the position of just making it over 21 only now, similar to our casino. We'll put a security guard at the entrance with identification swipe and probably a roving security officer in the entire building, but that we're kind of mimicking our casino building there to maximize the prevention of underage entry and gambling.
Very good. I'm not sure who's going to answer this. I want to go back to the clean air questions. As to both casinos, as to both facilities, I want to understand what the plan is about what is smoking and what is not smoking at both properties.
If I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the South Philadelphia Turf Club today is currently non-smoking. When sports wagering is implemented, it will continue to be fully non-smoking.
Okay.
The 360 Lounge, which is our temporary sportsbook area, is currently non-smoking and will continue to be non-smoking when the sportsbook is placed there temporarily. The final location, which would be the permanent sportsbook in the top left corner of the casino building, that will be non-smoking as well when open, correct? Correct. So all locations where the sports wagering will take place in the building will be non-smoking, in terms of our books would be.
Thank you very much. Nice and clear. We've been chasing that tail for a while now. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or follow-up questions?
I just had, when I go up to a teller or a kiosk to make a deposit in my account, what forms of payment will be accepted? Cash? Can I write a personal check? Can I use my PayPal account?
Cash.
Cash.
Yeah. If you want to use a debit card or cash a check, that would be something you would do at the cage as a separate transaction.
Okay.
So it's strictly cash.
No credit cards.
No credit cards.
Thank you very much. Okay. Enforcement Council, do you have a presentation?
Chairman, Commissioners, James Armstrong for the Office of Enforcement
Excuse
Counsel.
me a second. I did give everybody a chance to ask whatever they needed to ask. Okay, now go ahead. Thank you.
James Armstrong for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. We don't have a presentation, Chairman, but we have a statement and a recommendation that we'd like to put in the record. The Office of Enforcement Counsel, along with the Bureau of Casino Compliance, the Bureau of Gaming Operations, Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement, the Bureau of Gaming Laboratory Operations, and the Bureau of Licensing, along with the Office of Diversity and the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling, have reviewed and consulted extensively on the petition and appendices filed by Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment, Inc. to conduct sports wagering and for the issuance of a sports wagering certificate. After which, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer to this matter, requesting that the Board order the implementation of certain listed conditions if it was so inclined to grant the relief requested in the petition. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the approval of Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment Inc.'s petitions to conduct sports wagering at Parks Casino and at the South Philadelphia Turf Club, or to the issuance of a sports wagering certificate to Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment Inc. However, we request that the approval to conduct sports wagering at Parks Casino be subject to the proposed conditions outlined in the Office of Enforcement Counsel's answer filed on September 20th with regard to that specific petition, and that the approval to conduct sports wagering at the South Philadelphia Turf Club be subject to the proposed conditions outlined in OEC's answer filed in that specific matter on September 20th, as well as any conditions imposed by the board. The Office of Enforcement Counsel will be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Mark, do you have any questions for Enforcement Counsel at this time?
No questions, Mr. Chairman, but to address the condition issue,
Yes.
I think it was mostly a matter of hearing the way it was phrased at the meeting here as opposed to the way it is stated in the answer. The answer proposed a condition that the South Philadelphia Turf Club not be scheduled for testing until the testing has been completed successfully at Parks Casino. That just sounds different to me than what I heard this morning, which seemed to have a larger period of time in between those things. I think we presume that testing would be, the order of testing and the timing of testing would ultimately be dictated by the board staff in any regard. We've certainly requested that we be able to launch simultaneously, and we hope that we'll be able to coordinate that with staff as appropriate. But if one building is tested first and then the next one is immediately tested, I don't believe we have any objection to that.
He didn't hear me. He didn't hear me incorrectly. I said what was in the condition, and I stand by what I said.
Yeah, help me out here, Cyrus.
Mm-hmm.
His comment does not really directly respond to yours. So how do you see the limitations that you're imposing in your conditions?
I think the conditions are fine. I think the way they're stated and the way I stated here today, what's going to dictate them moving forward is whether or not staff, in going through everything they want to implement, is comfortable. I think staff has to first feel comfortable with what they want to do at parks, go through their testing period. If everything is ready to go at the turf club and staff feels that everything is ready to go, then staff can then do testing at the turf club. That may be within the same day, miraculously, if that occurs. It may be 2 days. It may be months. It depends on how things stand as we move forward with regard to the testing.
That's how you interpret the condition that you wish to impose on the granting of the license?
Yes.
Thank you. Is that clear to you what the intention is? Frame my question that way. Is it clear to you what the interpretation of that condition is that's being proposed for us to vote on today?
Yes, it is, and I don't think we have any objection to it. So I think we are more optimistic about how it'll roll out. But
that's fine. Just want to make sure we have no confusion here before we vote on something.
You may be fiercely agreeing with each other.
Yes, I think so.
Conclusion.
Any other comments at this time? If not, do you have anything you...
Just to move the presentation into evidence, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
No objection.
Okay, so moved. This matter also will be voted on slightly later this morning. Thank you for your presence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have consideration for a motion to approve the minutes and transcripts from our August 15th meeting. May I have such a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the August 15, 2018 meeting minutes and transcript.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted. Kevin O'Toole.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members of the board. From my Executive Director's report this morning, I'm pleased to inform you that board staff has completed and posted on our website the fiscal year 2017-2018 annual report and the gaming diversity report. The board's annual report is a project coordinated by our Office of Communications and is a collaboration of effort by each unit within our agency. The report includes statistical summaries and charts, a statement of revenue and expenditures, and information on each casino regarding revenue earned and taxes paid during fiscal year 2017-2018. Additionally, the annual report includes, as part of the statistical summary, the funds paid by each Pennsylvania casino as local share assessments, along with the name of the municipality, county, and school district that received local share funds. I'd like to express my appreciation to Doug Harbach, Richard McGarvey, and Doreen Edwards for their outstanding work once again in producing our annual report. In a way, it's probably the last one that's going to look exactly like this, because as you could gather from our presentations in the last couple of public meetings, including this morning's, we have a lot of new material that we anticipate putting in next year. The board has also issued this week the 11th Annual Gaming Diversity Report. The Diversity Report presents a summary for each casino in Pennsylvania that depicts employment by race, employment by gender, minority, woman, and local business-owned enterprise participation in both construction and non-construction projects, along with information regarding charitable and community outreach expenditures. Our Director of Diversity, Moselle Daniels, prepares the annual diversity report. Our casino licensees engage in good faith efforts throughout the year to promote and ensure diversity and inclusiveness in all aspects of their casino operations. I would also like to express my appreciation to Moselle, Sharon Reisinger, and Evelyn Early for their work on the diversity report. Next year, I expect the diversity report to pretty much be the same, but express a positive outcome on diversity with respect to personnel assigned to the new gaming expanded initiatives. To conclude, I would also like to inform the board that our current complement of employees at the gaming board is 295, of which 41.7% are female, 58.3% are male, and 17.6% are minorities. We as an agency exceed the averages for Commonwealth salaried employment for female and minority participation. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Kevin? I just have one. I just want to publicly acknowledge on behalf of the board the excellent work that Moselle has been doing in this area. She's very helpful and very clear when she meets with us to keep us up to date with what's going on. And I have to say, in the time I've been here, I've been quite honestly pleasantly surprised by where we stand. I know you, Moselle, have seen me express that surprise, and I just want you to, shout out to you for good work and keep it up. Any other comments? If not, we're going to take a short break at this time to consider some of the matters we're going to be voting on. Okay, then, we have finished our deliberations at this point. The stage is yours, Mr. Sherman, Office of Chief Counsel.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Today we have 6 petitions before you for consideration. 5 of the matters were heard earlier today during public hearings. The remaining petition will be decided on the record as there's no objection to the relief requested. In each of these matters, the board has, in advance of the meeting, been provided with all documents filed of record. The first 2 matters which I will present are matters seeking to approve interactive gaming certificates. To be clear, should the board approve the petitions, it will not be authorizing the licensee to commence the operation of interactive gaming at this time, but rather in each case, as the Office of Enforcement Counsel has requested a number of conditions, the casinos and their operators will need to fulfill those conditions as set forth in the board's order in these matters prior to being able to commence operations. Following those 2 matters, we will have 3 petitions seeking approval for sports wagering, also subject to hearings today. And once again, if the board approves those matters, the board will not be approving the go live, but rather will be approving the facilities to continue to progress toward the fulfillment of the conditions. With that by background, the first interactive gaming petition before the board is that of Sands Bethworks Gaming, and it's their petition for an interactive gaming certificate. I just wanted to comment that as we acknowledged, it's a little bit of a unique situation for Sands because of the pending transaction and sale of the property to another gaming entity. The reason that it's here is because in April of this year, the board announced that it would start accepting applications for interactive gaming certificates. Under the statute, if a entity wanted all 3 certificates, that is for slots, tables, and poker, they had to do so within, file the application within 90 days of that April date in order to get the reduced price. The statute also provides a 90-day period from the filing of the petition for the board to act, to either approve or deny the petition. And that is why, in a seemingly awkward procedural stance with the transaction, we nonetheless have to proceed with the board acting to grant the certificates, even though they will then be transferred to the new acquiring entity. And just with that, by way of background explanation as to why we're doing it now, because it's mandated by statute, I'd ask for a motion to consider the granting of the interactive gaming certificates to Sands.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve Sands Bethworks Gaming LLC's petition for an interactive gaming certificate and confidentiality motion as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the conditions to be outlined in the board's order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The Valley Forge Convention Center Partners is the second request before the board today, seeking the issuance of interactive gaming certificates and making a request for confidential treatment of certain documents filed of record. Obviously, this matter was also heard and is ready for the board's consideration.
May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve Valley Forge Convention Center Partners LP's petition for an interactive gaming certificate and confidentiality motion as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the conditions to be outlined in the board's order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matter before the board is the request for a sports wagering certificate filed by Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association. Again, this was discussed with the board during a hearing. I want to make clear, however, despite the reference to a petition for a waiver regarding the size of the sports wagering area being filed at some point in the future, we do not contemplate that such a petition is necessary, but rather the board's order to be issued in this matter will set forth a series of conditions which will include for the approval of the precise sports wagering area
through delegated authority. With that, the Mountain View
Can
petition.
I just ask a question
yes.
about that last sentence?
Yes.
Basically, the exact shape and size of that floor is going to be delegated for final approval to our executive director. Is that correct?
Exactly. As with all testing periods or any other reviews, for instance, security, surveillance measures, those matters are all reviewed by staff, and then the executive director will give the authorization that is sufficient.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the board on this matter? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board approve Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association LLC's petition for sports wagering certificate and confidentiality motion as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the conditions to be outlined in the board's order.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Okay, the next two matters were heard today in a consolidated hearing, and they relate to the Greenwood request for approval for a sports wagering certificate at both its Parks Casino location and at the South Philadelphia Turf Club, which is an off-track betting facility. As they are two separate petitions, I'd ask that the board take them up separately. First is the Greenwood Gaming petition regarding the approval of sports wagering certificate to occur at Parks Casino, as well as the attached request for confidentiality of certain information. We would agree that the information should be kept confidential, and the motion is appropriate for the board's consideration.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment, Inc.'s petition for approval and authority to conduct sports wagering in the Commonwealth and confidentiality motion as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the conditions to be outlined in the board's order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
And the second matter for your consideration would be the petition to conduct sports wagering at a non-primary location or off-track betting facility known as the South Philadelphia Turf Club. And that matter is ready for the board's consideration.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment, Inc.'s petition for approval and authority to conduct sports wagering at its South Philadelphia Turf Club and confidentiality motion as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the conditions to be outlined in the board's order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The final petition before you is Mohammed Al-Jafari's petition for removal from the involuntary exclusion list. In January 2017, Mr. Al-Jafari, who was 20 years of age at the time, attempted to enter a Rivers Casino by providing a false identification to the security staff. As a result of his actions, the Office of Enforcement Counsel at that time had moved to place him on the board's involuntary exclusion list, and the board, in fact, in July of 2017, did place him on the list until at least his 22nd birthday. Mr. Al-Jafari is now 22 years of age and is requesting removal from the list. OEC has no objection, and the matter is now ready for the board's disposition.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant Mohammed Al-Jafari's petition for removal from the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
And the final matters of the Office of Chief Counsel today relate to 4 unopposed petitions to surrender the credentials of the following individuals: Greg Russell Carano, Mark Stephen Torchetti, Michael Borofsky, and Andrew Howard. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to these surrenders, and if the board grants them, it would be doing so without prejudice to each request. Those matters are now ripe for the board's consideration.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board issues the order to approve the surrender as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
And that concludes the matters of the Office of Chief Counsel.
Thank you very much. Sue Hensel, Bureau of Licensing.
Thank you, Chairman Barish and members of the board. Before the board today will be one table game and slot machine manufacturer applicant, one conditional interactive gaming manufacturer applicant, one conditional video gaming terminal procurement agent applicant, 2 conditional video gaming terminal operator applicants, and 664 principal key gaming and non-gaming employee applicants. In addition, there will be the consideration of 1 certified gaming service provider applicant. First for your consideration is the approval of the slot machine and table game manufacturer licenses for AGS LLC, known as American Gaming Systems. AGS is headquartered in Las Vegas and manufactures slot machines and table game products, including shufflers. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with the background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that the board consider the order to approve the initial slot machine and table game manufacturer licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant AGS LLC, also known as American Gaming Systems, slot machine and table game manufacturer licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next for your consideration is a conditional interactive gaming manufacturer license for Every Interactive LLC. Every Interactive is a Las Vegas-based company that plans to offer interactive-related gaming products such as game content to interactive certificate holders. Under the board's temporary regulations, an interactive manufacturer applicant is eligible for conditional licensure if the applicant has submitted a completed licensing application including fees, and the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement does not object to the issuance of a conditional license. Every Interactive satisfies these criteria. I have provided the board with a draft order and ask that the board consider the order to approve Every Interactive LLC for conditional licensure.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board grant Every Interactive LLC's conditional interactive gaming manufacturer license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
In addition, there is a conditional license for the VGT procurement agent applicant, Bell Gaming LLC. Bell Gaming LLC is an Akron, Ohio entity. A procurement agent negotiates terminal placement agreements for placement of VGTs in truck stop establishments. In order to be eligible for conditional licensure, the procurement agent applicant must meet criteria including filing a completed application, having never had a similar license denied or revoked, having never been convicted of a felony or gaming law violation, and being current on state taxes. A preliminary review of the applicant indicates that it does satisfy these criteria. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you consider the order to approve a conditional license for Bell Gaming LLC.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant Bell Gaming LLC's conditional video gaming terminal procurement agent license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next item for your consideration today is conditional video gaming terminal operator licenses. A VGT operator owns, services, or maintains VGTs for placement and operation at truck stop establishments. The VGT operator applicants are Lucky Day Gaming Pennsylvania LLC and Second State Gaming LLC. Under the Gaming Act, the board may issue a conditional VGT terminal operator license provided certain criteria are met, including that the applicant has submitted a completed application, has never been convicted of a felony or a gambling law violation, is current on state taxes, and has not had a similar license denied or revoked. A preliminary review of these applicants indicates that they meet these criteria. I ask that the board consider a motion to approve the conditional VGT terminal operator licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant the conditional video gaming terminal operator licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Also, there are principal and key employee licenses. Prior to this meeting, the Bureau of Licensing provided you with a proposed order for 1 principal and 1 key employee. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant the principal and key employee licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
There are also temporary principal and key employee licenses. Prior to this meeting, the Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order regarding the issuance of temporary licenses for 11 principals and 16 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grants the temporary principal and key employee accreditations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
In addition, there are gaming permits and non-gaming registrations. Prior to this meeting, the Bureau of Licensing provided you with a list of 413 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits, and 162 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the board consider a motion approving the order.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant the gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Next, there is a recommendation of denial for 5 gaming employee applicants and 1 non-gaming employee applicant. In each case, the applicants were notified that he or she was being recommended for denial and failed to request a hearing within the specified time period. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with orders addressing these applicants who the Office of Enforcement Counsel has recommended for denial. I ask that the board consider a motion approving the denials.
Enforcement Council continues to request denial in each instance.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board deny the gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Also for your consideration are withdrawal requests for gaming and non-gaming employee applicants. In each case, the license, permit, or registration is no longer required. For today's meeting, I have provided the board with a list of 1 key, 41 gaming, and 12 non-gaming employee withdrawals for approval. I ask that the board consider the orders approving the list of withdrawals.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant the withdrawal of key gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Additionally, we have an applicant for gaming service provider certification. The company is Bonfire LLC. I ask that the board consider the order approving this gaming service provider applicant for certification.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant Bonfire LLC's application for gaming service provider certification as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
That concludes the Bureau of Licensing's matters.
Thank you, Susan. Next, Office of Enforcement Counsel.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 11 matters today for the board's consideration, in which we will request the board's approval of 2 consent agreements, 4 revocations, 2 suspensions, and 3 involuntary exclusions. First matter on the board's agenda under the Office of Enforcement Counsel section is the first 2 matters are consent agreements between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Sugar House HSP Gaming LP doing business as Sugar House Casino, our Category 2 licensee. The consent agreements will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel James Armstrong. Representatives for Sugar House are present, and at this time I request that those individuals introduce themselves for the record, and that anyone not here as an attorney please stand and be sworn.
Good morning, Commissioner. John Donnelly on behalf of the Sugar House, and with me is Dean McBride, who's Vice President of Gaming. I ask that he be sworn.
Dean, D-E-A-N.
Chairman, Commissioners, the Bureau of Casino Compliance referred a regulatory violation that occurred when Sugar House personnel self-reported that they did not follow proper procedure at a Spanish 21 table game. All 10 cards are removed from decks of cards utilized in the play of Spanish 21. On August 28th of 2017, a Sugar House Casino table games shift manager observed a 10 card during the play of a Spanish 21 game and immediately shut down all play at the table. Subsequent surveillance review revealed that Sugar House personnel failed to remove the 10s from the 8 decks of cards that were being utilized. As a result, 32 10 cards remained erroneously in play. In total, the 8 erroneous decks remained in play for 24 minutes, During that time, 27 hands were dealt, 18 of which involved 10 cards, thereby affecting the integrity of the game. There were 3 patrons during this time. 2 of the patrons won amounts less than $100, and the third patron lost approximately $115 and was not reimbursed by Sugar House. Sugar House took disciplinary action against the employees involved in the incident. 1 supervisor received a verbal warning, 1 dealer was issued a written warning, and all the employees received coaching on the proper procedure for Spanish 21. The Office of Enforcement Council and Sugar House request that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulation of settlement and between the parties. The terms of the settlement include a provision that Sugar House shall reinforce its policies and provide training and guidance to its table game department employees, which will minimize the potential for these violations to occur again. Sugar House shall pay a civil penalty of $10,000 for the violation, and Sugar House will pay administrative costs of $2,500 for costs incurred in this matter. Mr. Donnelly's here on behalf of Sugar House. We'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to ask Mr. McBride to explain to the board what actions in mitigation of this element on Spanish 21 you've instituted.
So I'd just like to start, is there any questions on the game of Spanish 21 and exactly what it is? Just briefly, it's basically 21 with slight rule changes with the 10s removed from a normal deck of cards. So if you know how to play 21, you would know how to play Spanish 21. So in addition to the discipline that was outlined earlier, progressive discipline with the people involved, we also reached out and found a manufacturer that would create packs of Spanish 21 cards separate from all other cards. We contracted with this company, US Playing Cards. They're a vendor here in Pennsylvania that will make us cards with the 10s already removed prior to coming to the casino and packaged separately than all other. We believe we're the first to do this, and though it wasn't required, the recommendation was that we retrain our employees. We wanted to take a little bit extra step and make sure that it's really hard to put 10s back into that game.
Quick question. In addition to having cards that have 48 instead of 52, on the face of the card or someplace, does it say Spanish 21? Is there another clue to your dealers other than the fact that the 10s are gone? Because I don't want to be here in a couple months talking about other games where a Spanish 21 deck was used when it should have been a 52 card deck.
Your point is well taken. We have so many games now and so many hybrid games. We refer them as carnival games. They're all based, several of them are based on poker or blackjack. And so a dealer in any one day would go through many variations of different games. Some of them require different amounts of cards. Spanish 21 is unique in that it does deal a pack of cards without the 10s. So besides the sign on the table, besides the layout of the game itself is much different than a blackjack game. That's one of the reasons why we decided to take the extra step to go to the manufacturer.
I understand, but other than the fact that the decks have 48 cards, is there any other visual clue to the dealer or to the players that they're...
Aside from the table game signage, the answer is no.
I see. I'm sorry, continue.
That's all I have. I will say what occurred here is that inexplicably, the dealer fanned out the cards, but fanned them out face down, and presumably, and did it several times, and never put them face up as they're supposed to. And they were disciplined for that.
I see. Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Council and Sugar House HSP Gaming, LP, as described by the Office of Enforcement Council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Thank you. Next matter for the board's consideration is a consent agreement reached between the Office of Enforcement Council and Sugar House Casino in regard to 7 incidents of a breach of table game integrity. Commissioners, the Bureau of Casino Compliance referred 7 regulatory violations that occurred regarding card shufflers that malfunctioned and were not properly addressed by Sugar House personnel on various games which affected the game's integrity. In the first incident, Sugar House reported that a Shuffle Master technician discovered 16 purple playing cards in a shuffler that the technician was servicing. The Bureau of Casino Compliance conducted a surveillance review of the incident and discovered that the 6 decks that were short 16 cards were put back in play after the shuffler malfunction and was removed from the blackjack game with the 16 cards inside. As a result, a total of 46 rounds of blackjack were dealt to 7 patrons, resulting in 122 individual hands from the illegitimate decks that were short 16 cards. The blackjack game was never shut down while Sugar House supervisory personnel were attempting to resolve the problem with the automatic shufflers. In the second incident, Sugar House personnel failed to properly address a warning light on the shuffler and conducted the play of a blackjack game with a deck of cards missing 1 card and a deck of cards containing an extra card. The first set of decks missing a card were in play for 15 minutes, and the second set of decks was in play for 50 minutes with 1 extra card. During this time, 60 hands were dealt to 6 patrons on the game. Sugar House won $255 over the patrons who were dealt the 60 hands with the illegitimate decks. The blackjack game was never shut down while Sugar House supervisory personnel were looking for the missing card. In the third incident, Sugar House reported that a shuffler malfunctioned in the poker room during a tournament. Surveillance coverage showed that the dealer continued to deal 16 hands while the shuffler was set in sort mode, and as a result, the cards dealt during these 16 hands were in sequential order and in the same suit. A supervisor corrected the setting on the shuffler to the proper mode shuffle. In the fourth incident, Sugar House reported that a review of a shuffler malfunction determined that 8 decks in the game on one of 2 mini Baccarat games were 4 cards short, and the 8 decks in play on another mini Baccarat game had 4 extra cards. There were 77 hands dealt by dealers on the mini Baccarat game with the 4 extra cards, and there were 78 hands dealt on the mini Baccarat game with the missing 4 cards. In the fifth incident, there was an issue with a shuffler in the poker room, resulting in 7 hands of poker being dealt with 2 decks that were 1 card short. The surveillance cover showed that poker room supervisors eventually examined the shuffler machine and closed the game. Subsequently, a supervisor conducted a hand check of both sets of decks and discovered the missing card. In the sixth incident, Sugar House reported that a shuffler malfunctioned at a blackjack game. It was discovered that a card was missing from a set of 6 decks that had been in play for 14 minutes. The blackjack game was never shut down while supervisory personnel were attempting to resolve the problem with the shuffler. Sugar House personnel did not advise the 4 patrons on the blackjack game of the error on the 17 hands dealt with the short decks. The surveillance review of the 17 hands dealt with the short decks indicated that all 4 patrons lost more than they won, for a collective loss of $840. And in the 7th incident, Sugar House reported that a violation occurred involving an extra card at a blackjack game. Because of a card being left behind in the dealing show, a blackjack game was conducted with an extra card in play for 34 minutes. The blackjack game was never shut down while supervisory personnel were attempting to resolve the issue. Sugar House personnel did not advise the 3 patrons on the blackjack game of the error regarding the 42 hands dealt with the extra card. Commissioners, if approved, this will be the second penalty assessed against Sugar House for violating provisions of the Act and the Board regulations regarding table game integrity. The Office of Enforcement Council and Sugar House requests that the Board approve the consent agreement and stipulation of settlement entered between the parties. The terms of the settlement include a provision that Sugar House shall reinforce its policies and provide training and guidance to its table game department employees, which will minimize the potential for these violations to occur again. Sugar House shall pay a civil penalty of $85,000 for the violations, and Sugar House will pay an administrative fee of $2,500 for costs incurred in this matter. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
Comments from Sugar House?
I wanted to emphasize a number of things and very briefly put Mr. McBride on and answer a few questions. We take this very seriously because even though there are tiny amounts involved and thousands of hands, it goes to the game, and the game should be exactly as the regulations set out. We have no dispute with that at all, and always should be. Some of these are quite old. They've been bundled into this consent. We've taken a number of steps to resolve this. I heard Mr. Armstrong say over many times that the game continued. I want to say that was not in order to keep the game going to make money for the house. What happened in many of these cases is that when the red light would go on, and under the procedures and regulations that we have, the protocol is to try the shuffler again, reset the shuffler, see if it works again, so it isn't a machine malfunction. the dealers, the dealers in all of these cases except for the mini baccarat, acted correctly. When they saw the red light come on, they raised their hand to call a supervisor. Supervisors then, in many of these cases, focused their attention on the shuffling machine, resetting it, having it run again, and failed to make the mental connection that the 8 decks of cards that were being dealt live might be fouled up too, because the 8 decks that were in the shuffler were fouled up. I can't tell you why they failed to make that connection, but they did. I want to ask Mr. McBride a few questions. Were these persons that Mr. Armstrong just recited disciplined?
Yes, they were all.
And what were the levels of discipline meted out?
So as it progressed through, like you said, the earliest one is May of 17 all the way through, and the sixth one was in January of 18. So these were bundled together. So they start out with what you would normally do to an employee that makes a mistake. You would remind them, retrain them on the process and the correct procedure. But as it progressed, so did the discipline, from escalated discipline. And unfortunately, at the end, we don't like to do this, but people lost their jobs over it. So the final, they were terminated.
How many people were terminated?
So a total of 2 that were involved in these cases, and 1 was subsequently brought back through an appeal process that was held through the general manager.
And were those supervisors who were terminated?
Yeah, they were supervisors.
Now, the second thing you heard that Mr. Armstrong, I think, accurately emphasized is that although the game did go on, have you done anything to address that issue?
Yes, the regulations talk about if a machine jams, you should correct the malfunction. In the meantime, you should manually shuffle the cards. So that's what we were following. You said it correctly, that the supervisors would focus on the jammed machine, whether it's resetting it, whether it's switching it out with a spare that we have in the back room. However, when we realized they weren't making the connection between sometimes the machine does malfunction because of cards are stuck together due to humidity or makeup from a player's hand or grease from a player's hand. The answer is sometimes it's because they've left a card in the shoe or they've accidentally left a card in the discard rack, which would foul the second pack of cards. What we've done now is, frankly, even though it's very uncomfortable for a player, we've just stopped all gaming throughout poker, throughout table games and baccarat. If there's a malfunction that's designated by a red light on a shuffler, all gaming stops. Both packs of cards, no more cards are dealt, no more betting continues until all cards are verified.
All right. Do you have a program to substitute new machines, or not new machines, but machines in supply?
We have a common program that you'd find in all casinos. Most of us lease our shuffle machines, and that includes an on-site repairman that does nothing but recalibrate, clean, and repair shufflers. That also comes with spare shuffling machines. They're easily slid in and out of a holder on the table, so that would be called a spare program.
You heard Mr. Armstrong reference training. Did you retrain and did you change any of your training protocols?
Yeah, we did. So like I mentioned before, we started with refresher trainings and group meetings, pre-shift meetings, and as it progressed, it turned into read-in signs. And these read-in signs progressed to second level, where it became, not only was it a read-in sign that you knew the rule, that you had to verify the cards. When we realized they didn't make the connection between the second pack of cards, we reissued it with it very clear that both decks, both packs of cards must be verified, all gaming must stop. We added that to not only the orientation program that when you're hired into Sugar House, but then if you were ever promoted once you are hired, you're retrained again through that same program.
Did you check to see if there could have been any collusion between dealers and players related to these incidents?
We did. So surveillance department ran an investigation, table games leadership ran an investigation, and the games and the incidents spread over all 3 shifts at different times, multiple different games, multiple different dealers and supervisor combinations, and different customers. So we found no patterns in any of those areas.
Last question. When was the last one of these incidents that you experienced after these, when was the last time you had these problems?
I believe the last one was January of 2018.
2018. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board on this matter?
Comment, first of all, that colloquy was very helpful. Post-action colloquy is very enlightening and very insightful, helpful to me. Secondly, there are two words that I would use for what did go on, and that's careless disregard. And I think you've acknowledged that. From what I hear in the colloquy, we shouldn't see you all back here again, certainly for the same reason. But if you were back here again, it would be a careless disregard once again. And I assure you, at least from this commissioner's viewpoint, that number would be much higher because it goes, as you said, Mr. Donnelly, to the integrity of the game. And from suitability to integrity, those two words are incredibly operable and important in the statute and to the work that we do here at the commission. And so we too take this very seriously. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? I have a couple of questions and then a comment. I guess I'll ask the Enforcement Council. So we had 7 incidents.
Yes.
Spread out over a 6-7 month period, correct?
Went from May 17 through January.
Okay. Given all the work you all do, that, to me, it seems, whether it's combined or not combined, it seems like a large number of separate incidents in a relatively short period of time, in terms of what I've seen over the last couple of years. From your experience, Cyrus, would that be accurate?
That would be accurate. We did have a previous, and I think this was before your tenure. We had previous incidents like this at Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad to see that Mr. Donnelly finally got the message and implement the same type of procedures that they implemented at Rivers. Now they've implemented at Sugar House, and we haven't seen those types of issues pop up at Rivers again to the extent we've seen them in the past. What Rivers does is much to what Sugar House is now going to do. And so we have seen incidents where this has occurred, but the game is stopped at Rivers. The patrons, if they've lost money, they're reimbursed, and everything is fixed. They usually get a warning letters from us in that regard. No patrons are harmed. In this case, you had harm to the integrity of the game, you had harm to patrons. I think with the corrective action that they've taken, that if we do see any matters like this in the future, it's because somebody did not follow the protocol that they have now put in place.
I guess I have a question. It's for both of you. I'll let you respond first, Cyrus. Having gone through this whole investigation, what explanation, if any, do you have for why we had this rash of incidents at Sugar House? If it's abnormal, and the previous 6 months we don't have this, and then since then, obviously, corrective measures, what was going on in Sugar House, in your view, that caused this amount of mess-ups in a relatively short period of time?
I think, as Commissioner Jewell pointed out, carelessness. You have dealers turning over. You have new people coming on. You have people not accustomed to certain problems. You have turnover in table games personnel consistently, and from that regard, we didn't see any collusion. I think.
I understand that. What I'm trying to understand is, if I'm sneezing, it's probably because I have a cold. So we have a whole bunch of sneezing here, but I don't quite understand what happened that in a 6-month period, your systems.
May I address that? Because I had the same exact question.
Please, too.
First of all, it's a long period of time, but I don't want anybody to think that Cyrus or Jim are laying on their sleeping. They're saying to Donnelly, what the hell's going on there, too? So we looked into it immediately, and I looked for motive. I say, what is the motive for some supervisor who's got a highly compensated job to do this? And that's why we started looking at collusion. Is there any collusion? No motive. We could not find any motive. In fact, we looked at where the certain dealers were with certain players during certain shifts, no correlation. So I'll let Dean speak for himself, but Dean told me what combination of boredom, game sometimes gets boring. A lot of it was the red light's going off, and let's look at the red light. Meanwhile, something's going on over here, and just didn't make that connection. And carelessness.
I guess what I don't understand is nothing happened in that 6-month period to make a bunch of random employees suddenly all get bored at the same time.
No.
I'm trying to understand. Cyrus made a suggestion. I don't know what the facts are. Was there exceptionally high level of turnover? Were these people new employees? I mean,
What you'll see, I mean, every casino has a problem. The shufflers, the red light goes off consistently. And when I say consistently, it may go off a few times, and they become complacent. Oh, something's wrong with the shuffler. Let's remove the shuffler. It's the shuffler that has a problem. And sometimes there is a disconnect that, oh, I don't think there's anything wrong with what we did. I checked the cards and everything to my satisfaction, so it's the shuffler. So it's complacency in that regard with regard to the red light going off on the shuffler. And we have seen that occur at other casinos, but not to this length of time over and consistently month after month after month. So outside of that, I don't know what else we could offer in that regard.
I guess, well, the one thing that you did say, I'm sorry to take everybody's time, but I just really want to understand this. You said it's not like these guys were sleeping on the job. You were in contact immediately. I'm going to guess the contact didn't start with the 7th incident. It must have started considerably before the 7th incident. Is that fair to say?
I can't tell you exactly when it happened, but one of the things that we did do react to, we kept escalating the discipline. And one would think if there's no motive and you're making it your job and you're living, that would make sense. When that didn't work, we went to the ultimate discipline and started firing people. That woke people up. It's unfortunate. I mean, nobody wants to fire somebody for just being careless.
Woke them up, but they're not here anymore. So, in this process, I'm gathering that some of the participants in incident 1, 2, 3, or 4 show up again in subsequent incidents, or was this all different people from 7 different events?
No repeat employees.
So supervisor in case number 1 was not in case 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7?
That's correct.
So we have 7 different supervisors potentially that are not doing their job or are bored or whatever the heck is going on?
Well, I want to point out that they were doing their job. We trained them to focus on fixing the problem. They were focusing on fixing the shuffler.
I understand.
What they made a mistake, they failed to realize.
I understand all that. I'm trying to understand. So it's not a matter of a couple of people
responding to it.
It's not a matter of a couple people repeatedly messing up. It's different of your employees messing up in 7 different situations.
That's right. That's why we did the comprehensive thing.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel, Sugar House HSP Gaming LP as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The chair votes no. The motion is adopted.
Thank you.
The next 6 matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the revocation of 3 non-gaming employee registrations and 1 gaming level 2 employee occupation permit, as well as the suspension of 1 non-gaming employee registration and 1 gaming employee occupation permit, which were all issued by the board. Each complaint has been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the person named in each complaint. The person named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment and properly served the same upon each named person. Therefore, the facts in each complaint are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and request the appropriate board action.
Thank you. James Armstrong for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. Next on the agenda for the board's consideration is a complaint to revoke Heidi Calderon's non-gaming employee registration for engaging in unsuitable conduct by not ringing up all sales and taking money that belonged to Sugar House Casino while employed there as a server cashier. Ms. Calderon was terminated from Sugar House. She is not presently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. Accordingly, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke Ms. Calderon's non-gaming employee registration.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the revocation of Heidi Calderon's non-gaming employee registration as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you. Next on the agenda for the board's consideration is a complaint to revoke Larry Mayo's non-gaming employee registration for stealing $700 from an ATM that was accidentally left behind by a patron at Sugar House Casino. Mr. Mayo is not presently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. Accordingly, OEC requests the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration of Mr. Mayo.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board approve the revocation of Larry Mayo's non-gaming employee registration as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Good afternoon, Chairman Barish, members of the board. David Tepper, T-E-P-P-E-R, on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. Next on the agenda is a request to suspend Chance Harr's gaming employee occupation permit. Mr. Harr was charged with 1 count of statutory sexual assault, 8 to 11 years older, a second-degree felony. The matter is currently pending before the Court of Common Pleas of Bucks County. Mr. Harr is not currently employed by any licensee in Pennsylvania. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Chance Harr.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the suspension of Chance Harr's gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's
Chairman,
adopted.
can you?
Oh,
I
I'm
didn't
sorry.
vote yet. I'm sorry. All right, I vote aye, yeah.
Okay. Just to do that over again. Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Chairman, members of the board, John Crowe, C-R-O-H-E, again for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter for the board's consideration is the suspension of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Patrick Lehman. Patrick Lehman was charged with 5 felonies and 2 misdemeanors related to allegedly selling 1 pound of marijuana to a confidential informant. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board suspend the non-gaming employee registration issued to Patrick Lehman.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the suspension of Patrick Lehman's non-gaming employee registration as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matter for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Rosemary Marone. Rosemary Marone pleaded guilty to burglary of felony 1 and criminal trespass of felony 3 relating to a home invasion. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration issued to Rosemary Marone.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the revocation of Rosemary Marone's non-gaming employee registration as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
And the next matter for the board's consideration is the revocation of the G2 employee occupation permit issued to Jason Singleman for fraudulently increasing 2 patrons' players' ratings, thereby fraudulently increasing each patron's player rewards. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board revoke the G2 employee occupation permit issued to Jason Singleman.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the revocation of Jason Singleton Gaming Level 2 Employee Occupation Permit as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals whose presence in a licensed facility are inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and are licensed gaming therein. In each instance, the petition for exclusion has been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in the petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each named individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted, all filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, if the board orders the proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of their inimical conduct will be placed on the board's public website.
Good afternoon, Chairman Barish, members of the board. Dustin Miller on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next two matters on the board's agenda are related. With the board's permission, I'll read one set of facts for both individuals. On March 14, 2018, Shelby Brown and Oscar Carter III came to Rivers Casino with a 17-year-old female. The 17-year-old female used false identification to get on the gaming floor at Rivers, where she engaged in gaming activity for over 2.5 hours. Subsequent investigation revealed that Ms. Brown had unsuccessfully attempted to enter the gaming floor at Rivers Casino with the 17-year-old female a week earlier on March 7, 2018 as well. Later on March 14, 2018, the 17-year-old female was arrested in a prostitution sting operation conducted by Pittsburgh police and federal authorities. The 17-year-old female indicated to police that she was working for Ms. Brown and Mr. Carter. Ms. Brown and Mr. Carter have been arrested and criminally charged with human trafficking and related charges. Those charges currently remain pending in federal court. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board place Shelby Brown on the board's excluded persons list.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the addition of Shelby Brown to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel also requests the board place Oscar Carter III on the board's excluded persons list.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board approve the addition of Oscar Carter III to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Tamara Haken, Haken, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the involuntary exclusion of Douglas Yapel. On February 21st, 2018, Mr. Yapel illegally entered another patron's vehicle at Presque Isles Valet and drove it off the property. Mr. Yapel entered a guilty plea to the resulting criminal charges and was permanently ejected from the casino. As a result, OEC requests that the board issue an order placing Douglas Yapel on the involuntary exclusion list.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the addition of Douglas Yapel to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Thank you. That concludes our business.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes today's meeting. Our next public session will be held on Wednesday, October 31st at 10 a.m. in this room. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion's adopted, and we are adjourned. Thank you all for your cooperation.